What up, World? We're 18 back at it again. Welcome to the episode. Before Nike had the swoosh hype and Reebok had the pump craze, there was another name on the block, British Knights. They were flashy, bold, and for a minute in the 80s and early 90s, they were everywhere. So what happened? Let's lace up and find out. So I remember all the British Knight commercials. They were big. Me and my supervisor was talking about this at work the other day, and I thought it would be an interesting topic to talk about. He said that he had some British Knights, and kids would make fun of him for having those shoes. And I don't remember it that way. I remember British Knights were big when I grew up. A lot of kids had them. I didn't have them because I was poor and I didn't have name brand shoes. But a lot of kids had those shoes. The commercials were everywhere. So let's talk about that in this video. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share. You're watching the beginning of BK. British Knights, or BKs, launched in 1983 under the company Jack Swartz Shoes in New York. They weren't from London, like the name suggests. The British touch, it was marketing, meant to sound stylish and different in the American market. The slogan said it all. The shoe ain't just for playing. They weren't selling performance shoes, they were selling attitude. BK was urban fashion before streetwear was even a word. While Nike chased athletes, British Knights went after artists, dancers, and youth culture. Their shoes looked like rebellion. Big logos, metallic accents, and wild colorways. So like I said, these shoes were kind of big when I was growing up. I remember all the commercials. I remember even like game shows like Double Dare, they would give away the BK shoes. So they were pretty much in pop culture everywhere. And they were huge. And I always wanted a pair, but I never could afford any. The rise. By 1988, BKs were in every urban fashion magazine. They sponsored breakdance crews, hip-hop artists, and even basketball players like Derek Coleman and Lloyd Daniels.
Derek Coleman. You know what they say about guys with big feet. Another truth from Derek and BK Dinosaur. You're welcome.
They had commercials on MTV when that meant something.
We come to get down to the hip-hop music.
Funky. Rap music.
Here we go again. BK.
The shoes look loud, thick tongues, huge BK on the side, perfect for baggy jeans and boom boxes. BKs were the ultimate look-at-me sneaker. They weren't about blending in, they were about standing out. For a few years, they held their own against Nike, Reebok, and Adidas. No small feat. So the commercials were everywhere. If you watch TV, you would see a BK commercial at least one out of every fucking 30 minutes. So they were really selling that brand. I think they was trying to sell it to the younger kids too. Like I said, I really wanted a pair and I could never get one. I knew kids that had them, and they were really. It was a really big thing. It was a really big deal to have British Knights, and those commercials, like I said, were everywhere. The brand image. British Knights built their brand around rebellion. They didn't care about fitting in with the clean-cut sports crowd. Their ads featured rappers, not runners. Graffiti, not golf. Street culture, not stadiums. They leaned heavy into hip-hop, a bold mood in the 80s when most sneaker brands stayed away from that scene. That connection made them cool, but it also caused problems later. BK wasn't safe or suburban, and that made some retailers nervous. When hip-hop got unfairly tied to crime in the early 90s, BK's street image started working against them. So, if you guys didn't know, in the 90s, hip-hop became like one of the worst genres of music, I guess you could say, to older people.
Rap opponents say they're fighting to save a generation. It won't be easy. Last night at the Billboard Music Awards in Hollywood, one of the most foul-mouthed rappers, Dr. Dre, was upheld as one of the best artists of the year.
Congress had to ban it. They put the sticker, the parental guidance sticker. They tried to, what's the word? They tried to censor it, and BK wanted to be in that scene or whatever. So they put their brand towards the rappers or whatever, and the controversy got them scared, I guess. So rap was huge back in the 90s too, but like I said, it was just getting out there. so it was new to a lot of people, and it was very violent because they talked about the streets and what's really happening in the world.
Critics say the artists have a right to say whatever they want, but others also have the right not to hear it. Rappers like Farside say they're just reflecting street life.
I'm not trying to be no bad man and say bad things. I just talk about what I see.
And a lot of people wasn't prepared to hear that kind of music at the time. So being associated with rapping and rappers wasn't a good look at the time. The controversy. In the early 90s, rumors started spreading. People claimed BK stood for blood killers, supposedly connecting the brand to gang culture. It wasn't true, but the rumor spread fast and the damage was done. Parents stopped buying the shoes, stores pulled them off the shelves in certain cities. The brand tried to fight back, releasing statements and new campaigns, but the word of mouth was stronger than the marketing. By 94, BK's street credibility has flipped into controversy and sales plummeted. So gang violence was huge. I never knew that people thought it stood for blood killer. So that shit just flew right over my head. I never knew that. I just knew that the commercials wasn't coming on TV no more. So I can understand why parents wanted their kids to get out of that, because that shit, gang violence was huge back in the 90s. It's still big today, but it was so bad. People was getting killed over shoes and shit like that. So I can understand why the sales plummeted. The kids, parents didn't want their kids in those shoes that associated with gang violence, and a lot of young black kids were wearing those shoes. So I get it why the shoe sales went down and why kids weren't buying them anymore, or parents weren't buying for their kids. The fall and fading out. While BK was fighting rumors, Nike was launching Air Jordans and Reebok was reinventing itself with the pump. British Knights couldn't keep up. They went from trend-setting to outdated almost overnight. By the mid-90s, BKs had vanished from the stores. Their loud style didn't fit the new minimalist sneaker era. It's not that the shoes were bad, they were just a product of their time. BKs belonged to that bold, flashy late 80s energy that couldn't survive the 90s reset. Yeah, that shit went out like a flash in the pan. It went out so quick. All of a sudden there was no more commercials. Jordan was everywhere, and the Reebok pumps was getting big. Everybody rebranded, and BK just they couldn't keep up with everything else, all the other shoe companies or whatever, and they just disappeared. You didn't see any of the shoes in the stores anymore. All you saw was Jordan, Nike, Reebok, maybe some Fila's, and BK was just non-existent. It's crazy how something could be so huge at one point and then vanish over time because of word of mouth. The legacy and comeback attempts. British Knights never fully disappeared. They had small relaunches in the 2000s and again in the 2010s, mostly targeting retro sneaker fans who remember the brand's glory days. For collectors and 80s, 90s kids, BKs are nostalgia gold, a reminder of a time when sneakers were wild, creative, and full of attitude. You might not see them next to Nikes on a wall today, but the style they inspired, that never left. So I didn't even know they did a relaunch. I'm not into shoes anymore. I'm a grown adult, so by 2000 I didn't really give a fuck about shoes. I wasn't into shoes, and definitely in the 2010s I wasn't into shoes, so I wasn't following none of that. I didn't know that I didn't know that they were making a comeback, and even if they did come back, I wasn't gonna get them. So that was just not my era anymore. I wasn't into it, and I guess older people that are into shoes are buying those shoes, but I haven't seen a British Knight shoe in a shoe store in forever, like since I was a kid. And my son is 17, so he ain't asked me to buy him no BKs. He's asked me for Jordans and Nikes and shit like that. So that's how I keep up with shoes, asking him. British Knights were loud, proud, and unapologetically 80s. They burned bright, faded fast, and left a footprint that still echoes in sneaker culture. Not every brand becomes a legend, but every legend has a story. That's gonna do it for the video. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think of BK, British Knights. If you wore them, if you bought them. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share. You can be on anybody else's channel. and you decided to give me a couple minutes of your day, I truly appreciate that. There's only 24 hours in a day, and you gave me a couple minutes, and I hope I didn't waste that time. Time is very valuable. Have a good one. I will get at you guys on the next one. You've been watching